Malibu Creek State Park Campground is located west of Los Angeles and is easily accessible from many major freeways. All of the sites are around one continuous loop at the campground. There are 2 bathrooms and they have flush toilets and showers. The campground is set up as a loop. It goes all the way around, surrounding a center area where there's a restroom and there are some campsites on the inside part of the loop. Many of the sites are open without trees, but there are some select sites that have really beautiful big old trees. But the whole campground is surrounded by, as you can see here, there's some dense forest that goes behind where your site is located, which I guess you could explore. And then, like as you can see here on this site, they have a really beautiful view of the mountains in the background. This is site 2, and you can see it gets probably partial shade, and this is facing on the inside area. And a lot of people, who are on the outside of the loop, when they go to the restroom, they sometimes do cut up, right next to the edges of the campsites here to get in the middle, although there is a place where you can walk in if you follow the road around. This is site 5, and this is typical. Most of the sites are pretty good size. It looks like at least morning shade here for the picnic table, and then as I mentioned, there's like a dense forest that goes back behind the site, and it looks like most of the sites too have double wide parking for 2 vehicles. This is site 7. Absolutely no shade for the picnic table, fire ring. And as I'm filming this, it's early June, and they are still allowing campfires in their fire rings. And pretty dense forest back there. This is the restroom area, and here you can see the center area of the campground. It looks like a kind of a public picnic table there in the middle, but you can see there are probably 10 or 12 sites on the inside of the road that surround this bathroom. And this is the one bathroom for the whole campground. And it looks like there's 2 bathrooms on each side. And then I saw on the other side there is a shower that accepts tokens, and which I assume you get from the kiosk when you come in. And then they do have a number of sinks here on the outside where you could do dishes. These are flush toilets, and the overall condition of the bathrooms is fine. The campground does have a number of water spigots around with potable water, so you can refill water here. This is site 10. This one is pretty small. I would say this is a good one if you need handicap access to the bathroom, because you are pretty close to a concrete path. But you can see the pathway to get into the restroom from this direction goes right next to the site. There is some shade there on the picnic table here in the morning. This is site 11. Beautiful. Looking up there on the hillside behind the site, but you can see the picnic table and fire ring are right out in the open. And then if you were to pitch a tent, I guess I would do it right over here to the left. Number 12 is a pretty cool site. It has an area you can see a tent back in there underneath that big tree. This is site 17, which is a good example of some of the really beautiful big old trees that are here in the campground. Just quickly show you over here, a little area there for your tent and your picnic table, but no shade there. But it might be kind of cool to set up your chair to relax over there in the shade under that big tree. This is site 18, big open area, some shade over toward the trees there. Site 20, another double-sided parking area, picnic table in the shade. Lots of birds, I guess, when it's empty, looking for snacks. And some good open area over there for a tent to pitch, and you're right next to this beautiful big tree. Site 21, picnic table has partial shade. Lots of area for a tent, although we're on a hillside here. And maybe right there it would be flat, but I'm not sure this would be a great site from an angle point of view. Oh, as I follow the loop back, there looks like a second restroom in the back area. Looks like it's similar in size and amenities as the first one we just looked at. They do have dumpsters here at the campground. Site 22 here is on quite an angle. Site 23 has awesome shade. It looks like it might be pretty flat. Excuse me, this is site 24. Has great shade, lots of big trees, and it looks like right over in here you could put a tent where it's flat, maybe further back that way as well, which might be better, because over on this side you would be right next to the adjacent side. Site 25 looks like pretty good privacy over at this one. I would pitch the tent in the back over there to the left and behind the picnic table. Doesn't look like much shade though for the picnic table, but there's a good stand of trees and bushes to the right, which gives you privacy in that direction. And then over here, a decent distance to the next site. Site 27, huge site, lots of privacy. The only downside is that your picnic table, I guess it doesn't matter with the fire ring whether there's shade or not, but for the picnic table, it's fully out in the sun. But I do see some flat areas further back near the trees over there where it would be good to put up a tent. Site 29, completely in the sun. Site 30, right next to a water spigot and the bathrooms, but there is a concrete or asphalt pathway that runs right next to your site, and not seeing any great places to set up a tent. This would probably be an RV site if you need to be near a bathroom. Site 31, kind of just a wide, narrow site. It's not wide, that's the next site over there. Site 31, here's your parking. You've got a picnic table and a fire ring, no shade, a small area. Actually here on this side would probably be the best place to put the tent, because on the other side you would be right next to your adjacent site. And then this is site 32. big, beautiful tree. I don't know if you can see through the trees there, but that's the bathroom. But yeah, you're a good 50, 60 feet away. But you probably would get great shade all day long with that big tree there on your picnic table. And then probably pitch a tent somewhere over here on the right side. And pretty decent distance from the site to the right. Site 33 is a very compact site. Maybe put your tent, small tent right there. There's some sort of a cover for something, some utility piece of equipment, and then you are right next to your neighbor's picnic table. So I'm not sure I would put this one high on my list. Site 34 is pretty much the same kind of a deal here. It looks like you get partial shade with your picnic table. Maybe put a tent there on that flat area on the dirt, but you are fairly close to your neighbor. Site 37, we're back on the downhill of Site 37. The whole site is on a slope and no shade for your picnic table. 38, shade for the picnic table, nice spot under a big tree for your tent. Site 39, small area there for your picnic table. I don't see a very good spot for your tent. Site 42, and then also the one right next to it, looks like 43. They're right next to a gate which has a sign authorized personnel, and there's some sort of a house which maybe is commercial for the state park back there, so you would probably get some traffic there. Also, you're right next to your neighbor. Picnic table's totally in the sun, so I would not rate this one high. Site 44, I see flat spot for a tent. There's no shade for your picnic table. Pretty small site. Site 45. Some looks like partial shade for your picnic table, and probably put a tent over here on this side, but again, we're still on that slope, so I don't think this site is tremendously flat. Site 47, just a small amount of space on the left here for a picnic table and fire array. Still on the slope, though I don't really see any flat areas. So this is Diane and Susan. They're volunteers here at the state park, and they're going to tell me about a couple of the different interesting, unique things that are available here.
Yeah. So my name is Diane, and I actually this weekend we'll be doing a junior ranger program. This summer we started doing them once a week near the campfire at the amphitheater from 4 to 5. This month is about squirrels, ground squirrels. Next month will be about bats. It's all different topics, but there's something every week, and then twice a month we have campfires for the people in the campground or from people from outside. So that's one thing I do, along with Susan, and I do school hikes, and Susan can mention that.
Yeah, we do school walks. We bring fourth grade kids usually come in during the school year, and we take them out to our visitor center, which is another place to go to take your kids to if you're here camping. It's about a mile out. It's on the high road. It's an easy walk out, but it's about a mile. Take your time getting there. But it's a little natural history museum. We have a lot of animal species in there, flora, fauna, park history with the indigenous people, and most people really enjoy it. And we have a children's room with really interesting, fun things for young kids to engage in. And it's open on Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 4.
Another thing that's cool about the park that a lot of people don't know, if you come out of the visitor center and turn left, there's a rock pool. It's called the rock pool, and it's actually a big open area. You're not supposed to jump off the rocks. People do. People swim out there, but there's also a climbing wall that was in Planet of the Apes, and every weekend There's some legendary climbers that come out there that no one knows who they are, but they just come out and practice. So it's kind of fun for the kids to watch them.
Oh, that's really cool. So,
Yeah.
I saw that they filmed at least some of the shows from MASH out on the trail here, and then I heard the Planet of the Apes. I didn't see it on an online thing, but somebody mentioned to me they also did the Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid,
Yeah,
some of those
There's a scene
scenes.
from
They
that,
jumped
yeah.
off. Okay, might get it wrong, but watch the movie in the visitor center. They jumped off at Rock Creek and they landed in Century Lake.
Oh, oh, that's funny.
But another cool thing about the MASH site, just real quick, is a couple years ago was the 50-year anniversary, and Mike Farrell came out and he didn't tell anyone.
Oh, yeah.
He just went to the MASH site and met people as they came in. But the sheriff's department found out about it. I get goosebumps every time I think about it. And they reenacted the helicopter scene coming around the mountain that was in the original opening.
Oh, my.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
he was
cool.
like shocked.
That's cool. That's really nice that he did that, too.
Yeah, really cool.
So, anyway, well, gosh, I really appreciate the info, and you'll be famous on YouTube on my small channel in about a month.
Welcome into the park. Come in, hi. Come
Okay,
and find
thank
us.
you.
Take care.
Here's site 50. And not a very deep site. A little bit of privacy from, looks like 48 over to the right of it. Fairly flat here for a tent. Here's 51. Got a little bit of distance on the right side, but on the left side you're pretty close to site 49. And looks like over in there to the right would be where I would put a tent. Here's site 52. Guess put a tent over here. No shade. This is site 53. No shade. Flat spot over on the left there. And then there is actually, you could set up your tent maybe under this big beautiful tree over on the right, or on the left. This is site 54. No shade for the picnic table, but a pretty expansive area. It is open toward the picnic table on the left there, the site on the left, but pretty good distance. And just over here on the right is your neighbor, so not a huge amount of privacy or shade here. This is site 55. No shade. Not a lot of privacy. And there are some flat areas for your tent. This is site 56. You can see they put their tent right next to their picnic table, but totally in the sun, and no shade there. To the left of site 56 in this open area is just a beautiful view out to the mountains. Site 57, no shade, but you do have that view just to the right of it that looks out over the mountains, which would be really nice. Site 58 has pretty good shade for the picnic table. Tents over on the right here, there's some flat areas there. You are pretty close though to your neighbor on the left. Right, 59, gorgeous big tree. There's your picnic table. Looks like they have their tent set up underneath it. Site 60, picnic table, no shade. Big area. This is on the inner loop. Picnic table. They put their tent underneath the big tree. '61. This is my site, which I think is one of the best here, if not the best. Picnic table in the shade underneath a beautiful big tree. I set the tent up underneath another big tree. Good size site. Your neighbor to the right completely concealed behind a big tree. And behind the site, if you're adventurous, you can bring a chair out here, and it's like you're all by yourself in the middle of the wilderness, and you can look at all these gorgeous mountains from different directions. Site 62 is right on the corner next to the main entrance road. Really no shade in this site. You have to bring a tarp, put over your picnic table. But the positive of this site is a completely unobstructed view of all of the mountains surrounding the area. So just a beautiful view from here. And the last site, site 63, is on the inner loop, but you can set up underneath a big, beautiful old tree there. And then there, way off in the distance, is the bathroom. So in conclusion, Malibu Creek Campground, which is in Malibu Creek State Park, is a beautiful location. As I'm showing you here behind me and around, you're not too far from the ocean, probably a few miles, but so it's not accessible to the ocean unless you drive. But you do get those beautiful rolling hills here in California hills. And the area here has some great hikes. You can, as the volunteer ladies mentioned earlier, you can take a hike and see some nostalgia from back in the day with some of the movies that they've made here. And Campground is kind of a mix. I think some of the sites are smallish, so I would try to avoid that. And some of the sites are not in the shade. But I think mainly the outer rim sites, if you're selective, and hopefully my video will help you with some of your some aspects for your selection. If you get one that has one of these big, beautiful trees that can give you some shade, it can be quite enjoyable here. And they are allowing campfires here. It's early June, but I'm sure it's going to get dry soon. They'll probably stop that for the summer. And bathrooms were clean. 2 bathrooms, looks like it's enough. They do have showers. They do have dishwashing, so those are nice. On the downside, it was a little bit, just one night, and maybe it was just coincidence, but it was a bit noisy. And I did have somebody accidentally walk through my site last night, but that's not a big deal. And yeah, so overall, I think if you're in the area, this would be one to consider going to. I would rate this site from the point of view of privacy. If that's important to you, you can get some privacy, but there are a lot of sites packed into a smaller area. So there are just a few sites that give you some level of privacy. And definitely look for sites that offer big trees, shade, and a site that gives you some level of privacy with your neighbor, if possible. But it's a nice place to come to. It's worth it just for the views of the surrounding countryside here, because this is like the unique look of California that a lot of people see from around the country. If you like this content, please press the like button and consider subscribing to the channel so you can hear more campsite tours, gear reviews, and I also have a beginner series which you can check out, which is already in the books. So I'll see you on the next one.